YouTube, welcome back. Old Man Sethis is back once again this week, and we are going to continue the yang from last week's yin when it comes to the interviews of the two major players in the stream wars. Last week we checked in with Clancy's interview with Jake Lucky, and this week we'll be going over a few of the topics that Steak Eddie and Jake Lucky went over when they had their interview a couple weeks ago. So buckle up, everybody. This one's going to get really good. Okay, the first thing that we're covering today is the 95.5 subsplit that Kick is offering to its streamers. This is a major point of contention amongst the streaming community as to whether or not this is something they are going to be able to continue to do. The big sticking point here is that it seems like it's unsustainable, essentially. A lot of folks are definitely saying that the 95.5 is just something to get people over, and then as time progresses, Kick is going to change their tune and probably alter the deal.
I am altering the deal.
So we're going to dive in, we're going to check this one out. Let's see what Eddie has to say, and I will give you my opinions on this as we go along.
I think a lot of people overall are wanting to know, with Kick's business model, can you go through that step by step a bit more? It's been widely talked about 95.5, these incredible sub splits that you're offering these streamers that have been really unheard of in the streaming space. So when it comes to the overall business model of Kick, can you go through that a little bit, details for the viewers?
Yeah, no, I think people getting caught up, right, on Kick in regards mainly to the sub split, right? I think that's always the most contentious side.
I'm going to stop Eddie right there, and I'm going to say that this is not the most contentious subject when it comes to Kick. We're actually going to be getting that in the next part of the video, but I will actually say that this is probably the 1A issue that a lot of people really do focus on when it comes to people talking about Kick and what they're doing over there. So let's go ahead and continue.
Of what makes Kick apparently not sustainable and all these other things that are thrown around. You know, we've got a big belief here at Kick that the one thing that should definitely never be touched is the sub split. The sub split is something which we consider to be almost donations, right? You receive a donation from your community, you receive subs from your community for making great content. And the whole concept of kind of dipping into that sub split, you know, our idea behind it is that's kind of unfair, right? We don't think that a platform, you know, just a platform that simply curates other people's content deserves a right to kind of take a split of people's revenue from donations, right? Donations are not something you should be taking money from. You know, obviously, you know, media in general, it can be monetized in so many other ways, right? Traditional media has been getting monetized very, very effectively for, you know, many years now. And the whole concept of suddenly dipping into subscriptions is something which I believe is, you know, pretty much only known across the live streaming space.
So we need to actually dissect this a little bit and talk about whether or not this is going to be the case. When it comes down to it, the 95.5 subsplit is something that is incredibly beneficial to all of the streamers who are going to be on Kick. The big issue here is, where is Kick going to make their money? Now, he started talking about ads and he started talking about potentially other revenue streams, and that's something we'll probably dive into here in a little bit. Actually, we will be diving into that here in the third part of the video. But when it comes to subscriptions on a platform, his donations, this is a really complicated subject in my opinion, because when it comes to a platform offering a space for people to broadcast their live content, personally, I do not find it to be a problem for them to take a little bit of the money that comes in through subscriptions. Basically, it's them covering the overhead. I get where Eddie's coming from on this one, but it does seem a little bit odd because only with a 95.5, they're truly not making any money, or if they are, they're making very little. And I don't know if I agree that it's not necessary for them to actually take a little bit of what the people who are using their platform are making.
So, you know, we take a strong stance that that's not required. You know, at the moment for Kick, we're definitely looking more towards advertising down the line as being the primary sort of business model. That is where we think that we can turn this into an extremely, you know, sustainable business. And I don't think we need to go into the whole concept of, you know, not only taking sort of, you know, 30% or even in some cases more of people's donations. And, you know, that is something we feel super strong about. And it's been sort of our main sort of get-go.
Eddie out here taking swipes at Twitch, everybody. So with what Eddie just said, what we need to talk about is, yes, advertising is huge. You see it on YouTube. We all know that it's very big there. We know that Twitch is trying to do more with it. And I think Eddie is probably onto something when he says that they are going to focus more on ads as time goes on. Is that currently a problem for them? Absolutely. And that's something we're going to get into here in a little bit. But What we can really take away from this is that the 95.5 is something that they don't want to touch. It seems like they are genuine in that. Now, whether or not that will continue to be the case as time moves on, we will see. What we do know is that they do have machinations on keeping it there, and that they want to go into other avenues to actually make their money to cover their overhead. So only God knows what's going to happen here. And I'm going to actually say it because in reference to last week's video, at least Eddie is saying something here, everyone. Last week's video with Dan Clancy was like trying to decipher hieroglyphics. The man doesn't really say a whole lot when people ask him questions, and at least we're getting a little bit of information out of Eddie, even if some of it seems a little bit disingenuous. So, with that being said, we're going to move on to the next topic, and we're going to cover what their probably biggest problem is. What is their biggest problem? Adin Ross. Let's see what Eddie had to say when Jake asked him about this one.
Have had a lot of big streamer announcements as of late. One of the biggest and first you had was Adin Ross, and a widely asked question is do you consider Adin Ross to be a brand risk for the Kick platform?
Spoiler alert, he absolutely is.
Yeah, so Adin was probably the first person to move over that really started to make waves, and as a result of that, actually, sorry, I take that back. I think Train coming over the Kick was massive, right? Everyone started talking about it. Adin then came shortly after, and at that point, people really started going, okay, this might be a real thing. Subsequently, we've got a hell of a lot of respect for Adin. He's been a great partner to us. He's really helped us grow. Of course, a lot of people have views on some streamers. They have views on what they do. It is something which we understand and we really respect. We don't want to be on the wrong side of incorrect policy.
What Eddie's saying here is that they don't want to be looking bad. When he's mentioning that we don't want to be on the wrong side of policy, Adin Ross is very well known for having Nazis on his show and doing a lot of questionable things, such as setting his pronouns to kill them in reference to people who might identify as trans or any other sexuality on the spectrum. The problem with all of this is that, yes, it brought a lot of eyeballs to Kick. There is a saying in the business that there is no such thing as bad press. Now, the unfortunate thing is that the streamer space is a very complex and very interesting area, cross-section of people actually, that identify all across all kinds of identities and all kinds of sexualities, all kinds of religions, ideologies, everything. Unfortunately, Adin Ross is a representative of someone that most folks, and when I say most, I mean the overwhelming majority outside of other fringe people, they think that he is a gigantic piece of shit. He's advocated for a lot of very questionable things, and the continued support of Kick for him has kind of been a sticking point for a lot of people. And this is why I say that this is likely the biggest sticking point for almost everyone who is a streamer, because it is such a divisive subject. We can't just dismiss that Adin Ross definitely brings over a large amount of viewers who are also of questionable morality to the platform. This is also why a lot of streamers are very, very reticent to stream over there, because they could actually be subjected to their bullshit whenever they stream. They could literally go out and try to target them, because as of right now, Kick doesn't really have a whole lot of safety tools for these kind of people. The problem moving forward is going to be, can Kick actually change its reputation for harboring these kind of folks? A lot of folks have strong opinions about Trainwrecks, which he mentioned in this snippet as well. And Trainwrecks is basically just someone who wants to gamble and wants to do his thing. He has also said some questionable things in the past as well, but to my understanding anyway, nothing nearly as incendiary or shitty as Adin Ross has. Here we are. Let's see what happens with the rest of this.
Yeah, there has been times. Listen, Adin is a friend of mine. I speak to Adin personally. I look after Adin personally. I've had to, give Adin a call and say, hey man, what's going on here? And I think this is
rightfully
a really big
so.
part
That's what
about
friends do.
Moderation and how we can do this better. I think a lot of the time there is an element of communication that can be had between the platform and the creators to try to bridge the gap of where you may not be seeing eye to eye. We've had some really productive chats with Adin when there has been elements of controversy, and we like to think that we've definitely made progress. In terms of a risk to the brand, I'd be lying if I said no, right? There's been a lot of people that have subsequently talked down on Kick because of the fact that some streamers have used the service. And it's something we're constantly monitoring. I think a big part about how we sort of moderate policy and content is going to be based around being extremely receptive to community feedback and understanding that. I think from our side of things, we want to avoid heavily promoting or heavily pushing content which may be deemed to be inappropriate or deemed to be borderline in terms of how the community has feedback. So
I'm going to give Eddie a lot of credit on this one and say that he is at least trying to be diplomatic and say that we are going to try and remedy this as time moves forward. Now, the unfortunate fact here is that Adin has already damaged their reputation pretty heavily, and they need to strongly consider what they're going to do moving forward as well. He brings up an excellent point, and that a lot of people do not want to come over to the platform for this very reason, as I just mentioned before. Now, what do we do from here? As a person who likes to go in and make change happen, I have streamed on Kick, and I want it to be known that I am there to fight the good fight. I have gotten blowback from even people who I am on the same side of this issue with because I have done it. I have been vilified for streaming on Kick, and it's unfortunate that people just want to ignore a problem and not actively change it. What does that have to do with anything that Eddie's saying right now? Well, he said that they want to be receptive to the community feedback, so the more people that go over there that may have a better look to them or have better optics, the better the platform is going to simply become. That's just how things like this work. If you go in and you actively want to see change happen, you get in there and be part of the reason that it's actually changing. They said that they're going to be receptive, and if enough people get in there and say, hey, this dude is really, really bad, we need to do something about it, it seems like they actually will. Even if it's his friend, if Eddie is a good businessman, he knows that he is going to have to make a change over time if Adin doesn't. So what we're looking at here is a situation that is incredibly fluid, and who the hell knows what's happening, but I will respect Eddie for the fact that he is actually answering these questions and trying to make it known that they will be trying their best to do this. But of course, the proof will be in the pudding as time goes on. We don't know if Stake is actually going to do anything like this, or if they're just saying all the right things right now for the optics, to bring more people over, to make sure that they can actually have a bigger slice of things moving forward. This is very much a developing situation, and it's something that we will continue to keep our eye on as time goes by, even though I know here in the near future, this isn't something we can continue to look at right now. That being said, let's look at one more thing that they're going to say on this subject, and then we'll move on to the last thing for this video.
Can I ask a question real quick? Also, just to make sure we're doing some due diligence on the last question. I know people are going to be a little wary about it. I'm going to rewind to Adin for just a second, just as a follow-up. I feel like a lot of maybe, let's call them Kick naysayers, would maybe look at the Adin situation, the situation being that he's on Kick and has done some questionable things, and look at your answer and say, okay, so are you guys just okay with the things that he's been doing because it's been bringing you in traffic? It's gotten, by all means, Adin has brought so many eyes to the platform and gotten
very fair question, everybody.
Kick,
very fair question.
A lot more eyeballs, and so is it like, okay, well, we're gonna look the other way from the things that you've been doing, which have been pretty serious, pretty toxic, pretty awful stuff that, like, we've talked to advertisers that don't want to include Kick in deals right now because of that. We've talked to people who don't want to switch over to Kick because they don't feel safe because of Adin Ross's community. Again,
everyone, going back to the advertising thing that we were talking about a few ago, and also what I was just speaking about when it comes to different streamers who aren't really wanting to come over because of how much of a malcontent Adin Ross is.
So to speak to those people, like, what would you say to maybe, like, reassure them that, hey, just reassure them, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but, like, that's what people are saying. So how would you respond maybe to those people?
I recorded a lot of information on this video, and there's a lot of good stuff here, and I want to cut it into two different pieces. So here I am telling you guys to tune in midweek this week for the rest of this interview with Steak Eddie. I hope you guys come back. Make sure that you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you very much again to all the Patreons and everyone who is coming back and getting all this information when I do these videos. It really does mean a lot to me, and I hope you're all enjoying it. We'll definitely see you on the next one. Have an awesome day, guys.